Hi, my name's Judy Shook, and thank you for joining me. This is a little intro to an art as meditation practice group that I lead, and I have been leading these about once a month. They're not ongoing, but you can catch the YouTube video, and I will update in the notes in the comments about that video. I'll update the information about when those are being held and how to join in with one. If you miss those dates, you can just enjoy the video and do your own artist meditation with prompts like this, or maybe you'll find your own prompts. There are plenty of them all around the world and in your life too. So I've been a part of Cynthia Winton Henry's Art of Ensoulment, and she has written this book. It is a great book. It's a tool you can use on your own with other people, or you can study with her in groups that she leads. And some of us are leading bits of it, pieces of it here and there. So this is a time when my art as meditation practice will focus on how to bow to suffering. And bowing to suffering is something I've been doing a lot of, especially since I got long COVID. Gosh, it's been 3.5 years ago. And I have some limits and some disabilities that are quite different from my previous life. And so learning to live with those and, really any of us having suffering and limits, it's the learning to be with what is such a deep spiritual practice. And of course, this can be the case even if it's not a physical illness. Of course, there's injustice and oppression everywhere. And if you're one of the people who's experiencing that, I am sure you have lots of tools of survival. I have learned that my tools of survival from different trauma in my life have not always been great and long-term avenues of grace. So I'm trying to let go of the attempts to have a quick, easy fix that really isn't a long-term avenue of grace. I'll be talking a little bit more about that, and Cynthia talks a lot about that, both in her book and in her teachings elsewhere. So one of the things that she shares in this book is about bowing to suffering, facing limits, suffering, and death takes courage. And she shares about that, some day-to-day practices and body wisdom tools that help her. So one is to literally stop. You can stop, acknowledge whatever it is, if it's fear, anger, grief, sense of being triggered, trauma. There's all sorts of things that arise, or maybe it's just your physical limits. And I shouldn't say just, maybe it's your physical limits. Maybe it's your cognitive limits, which I experienced with long COVID. And who knows what other limits you got there. So notice the sensations, notice the emotions. For instance, with fear, Cynthia is talking about fear's job is to protect us, not to demean this primal instinct is an important way of bowing to what is and befriending what is. So befriending the parts of us that we don't look at, the parts that we're uncomfortable with, that what a lot of, say like Jungian psychology, self-help stuff calls it your shadow. And so bowing to that. Fear is part of our amygdala, part of our brain, firing what it can't negotiate. And so to be patient with ourselves. Many people talk about like being patient with yourself like you would a small child who is having a hard time. You wouldn't expect the child to drive the car if they were 3 years old. So being patient with that part of yourself that isn't quite able to pull off the changes or pull off whatever's going on. And then Cynthia uses the practice to bow. Now, bowing can be really can be like the namaste bow that people of the Hindu culture actually invite us to practice and love that we practice that, which is different than cultural appropriation. It can be like bowing in a whole body, just like turning oneself over. Putting my head on the earth is always a relaxing thing if one is physically able to do that. Just like really resting on the earth. Another thing is just to give it a nod, just to say, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge you challenge. I acknowledge you struggle. Now, what we do in art as meditation is to acknowledge that practice and play with it. You may not feel like you're an artist. I'm going to show you a really simple doodle that I did the other day. I'm kind of embarrassed of it because, I mean, in terms of art quality, nobody's going to pay me for this. Yes, that's a funny little snail. And I was just looking at the process of some things that felt overwhelming and started making almost like dynamite explosions. And then in the middle, I started making a spiral and went, oh, this is a shell. I love shells. I love the beach. And then I realized it was a snail. Now, I am not a big fan of snails in my garden. And honestly, I don't like going slow, and I have to with my fatigue sometimes. So going slow and dealing with the reality of real snails in my garden, something I really have to work on bowing with. I could share a lot about that, but this short video. I hope that you will consider what it is in your life, parts of yourself, internally, or maybe some external circumstances that are beyond your control. We have an ability to respond. That's our responsibility. So this isn't about being passive, but it's about accepting those things that, like the serenity prayer says, that I can't change. Just grant me the serenity and the wisdom to see what I can change and what I can't. I hope you will find your own way to navigate dancing with the shadows, befriending what is, and honoring your own limits and suffering. Bless you in your journey with that. And if you want to join me, information's down below.